Alright, guys, this is Pause for Thought, and I'm the world around you on Fresh Old FM. Bit of housekeeping first, though. I got a complaint last week from the owner of the circumcision station because I didn't mention them right at the top of the show. So, from the bottom of my heart, Frank, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. And I'm learning from my mistakes as well. So, this week's show is sponsored by Shifty Steve's Takeaway, just off a Carnegie Industrial Estate in Urmston. And just as a last reminder to make up for last week's error, if you're looking for just a little off the top, get yourself down to the circumcision station. Anyway, let's crack on with the show. This week we've got an actual book to take information from and all, because this week we're looking towards the horizon. We're looking forwards, looking backwards, over our shoulder, we're looking around corners. This week we're looking at ghosts. And the book that we'll be gathering our information from is by John and Anne Spencer. I don't know if they're brother and sister or if they're married. And it's simply titled The Encyclopedia of Ghosts and Spirits. And let's start this week off with a song. This is Preach by Sunreal. But before we touch on ghosts, let's have a quick look at people who touch ghosts. The men and the women who have dedicated their lives to putting the O in ghosts. The big O. The writings on the wall forming by itself in blood, and the ectoplasm sticking to that crease in your hand just between your thumb and your index finger. It sounds like something that might be on D-Max after a watershed. Ghost fuckers. Spectrophilia, the fetish that says your dead nan's name into the bathroom mirror 3 times, then fucks her on the tiles. The type of ghost that is probably at the tip of every man's tongue is a succubus, a spirit which coerces men to fuck it so that it can harvest the life juices fresh from the udder in order to save it to impregnate a woman at a later date. But did you know that there's a ghost that fucks women too? The incubus. And there's a really simple way to remember which is which. The succubus sucks out the cum and the incubus puts it in. But I don't think they have to be these sorts of entities to be able to have relationships with people. The succubus and incubi are the sort of people you'd find in a club. They're not long-term partner material. They just want to harvest you for their own selfish desires and then move on to the next one. Now, for the research of the show, I've watched some fella try to summon himself a little sex demon on YouTube, and he claims that if you follow a very simple step, like it's like a 5-part process or something, including getting in touch with Lilith, the alleged original woman that was made at the same time as Adam, according to the lost books of the Bible, I guess, in the Garden of Eden, then what she'll do is she'll grant you a sex demon. Why would you fuck around with doing this for a YouTube video, man? I don't understand why you would try to, just in case they are real, innit? Why would you try and summon one and be, you don't know what you're messing about with, do you? Like hundreds and if not thousands of years of anecdotal evidence of interactions with demons, and this lad here is trying to get his end away with a demonic entity so that his sperm can be used to impregnate a woman somewhere on earth to create a demonic baby. It's fucking mad, mate. But we did find out something interesting from this guy, and that, according to him, Lucy Liu has been fucked by a ghost. It's a bold claim, but it happened at some point in the 1990s and took place on a futon, which is just as well, really, because when I think of a futon, I think poorly built, fold-out, pull-out bed, foldable bed. It's the sort of thing that you see in a kid's bedroom, innit? Not really much good for a shag, to be honest. It's not really got the support underneath for a lot of movement. It's like what you have in the bottom half of a bunk bed when you're a lonely child. Is it lonely child, only child? When you're an only child, same thing, really, I guess. But I've not seen one. I haven't seen a futon since I was in, you're in a kid's room. Not that I've been in a kid's room recently. When you were a kid, and you've got. I had one. I had a bunk bed where it was just one bunk on the top and a futon underneath. It was just what people had, wasn't it, for a period. Maybe it was a 90s thing. Maybe a lot of people had futons in the 90s. Don't know. But Lucy claims that this entity fucked her and has ever since been watching over her like a guardian angel. So it's more like a proper, not like a booty call. It is like entering into a relationship with them, I guess. Other celebrities have had relationships with ghosts though and all, like Dan Aykroyd, the guy, we all know who Dan Aykroyd is. He's obviously got a fascination with ghosts and aliens and that. But he says that he used to spoon a male ghost, and it seems a fair amount of other celebrities have had a go on ghosts and all. But succubi and incubi are just one type of ghost. There are others. The romantic sounding anniversary ghosts. these are supposed to be considered as a so-called like recording type ghosts, like it's recorded in the brickwork of the building or in the trees, and then they reappear each year when atmospheric conditions are similar. It'd be impossible for them to return at the exact same moment each year, because our calendar doesn't actually allow for the third Thursday of May to be always the third Thursday of May. The same date will happen again, but it won't be on the same day. Plus, you've got leap years and that getting in the way and all. And could that be what a leap year is? Maybe we learnt from, when I was talking about George Eastman a few weeks ago, that he had he made a 13-month calendar that perfectly divided up the year into repeatable dates. So every year, the third Thursday of May would be on like that date. Say that was the 24th. That would be on the 24th of May. Would be a Thursday again the next year, and every year it would repeat. So does that mean the calendar that we use now, where the day moves forward a year date-wise each year, was made to confuse the ghosts, or to perhaps be able to move ghost activity to another point in time in the year? One thing that I've never understood about our calendars is how if the 4th of December can be a Friday in 2020, then odds are it's a Saturday the next year, then a Sunday, and so on and so forth. So could our calendar be the actual reason for global warming and for the changes in seasonal climates being observed all around the world? Surely after 40 years, give or take, because of the leap years, then the month that we call June is actually happening a month later after about 40 years. Surely if that's the way that dates move, then when we have June, we're not in the same position of orbit around the sun after 40 years, surely. Like, imagine two dials, to put it in your heads, imagine two dials, right? Both of them flat, they're making like a burger shape. The patty is the mystery, the burger patty itself is the mystery. It's just like it is at your favourite fast food restaurants. And it's unimportant anyway. We don't think about the burger itself, don't think about the meat, just think about the bread. The bread are the two dials. One of these pieces of bread, or the dials, is spinning clockwise at a continuous pace, and the other one turns 1 degree anti-clockwise every time the other dial hits a full rotation. And if you marked both of these in their starting position, then measured how long it took for them both to meet at the starting position again, it'd take 360 rotations at the top dial. Is that what seasonal shift actually is? Have I just made up the word seasonal shift? We've allotted a false measurement of time that seems to go against nature, even down to when the year starts. Surely our year should start in spring when everything starts to come back to life, but instead the year ends with everything dying and starts with everything already dead. Does it make sense about the dials when I'm saying about the dials? Does that make sense? It's weird that there are 365 days in a year, but there are 360 degrees in a circle or in an orbit. Like, why have we added these extra degrees to the orbit of the sun unless it's to stop ghosts from knowing that the time is available, or when the time is that they can interact with the living? Some people believe that buildings can retain information and almost project stories and events into our perception of the world. That's what these anniversary ghosts are supposed to be based on. Apparently, it's also called a recording style haunting. So, not only do the walls have ears, but they've got hands and the skill of shadow puppetry almost. Are buildings alive? Are they a sort of projector? Are they real? In Harry Potter, it shows some walls aren't actually real. Maybe that's what windows are. Maybe windows are our minds trying to understand why a wall disappears, so it projects a transparent surface, unless the big they know about these holes in the walls and started manufacturing windows and filling these holes with windows. Was Dale Winton in on all of this? Was he trying to expose the television viewing public to non-existent boundaries? Bring on the wall, he used to shout, but just like Donald Trump did in his presidential election campaign. So what is this wall? Where should this wall be visible? Does this wall only exist to ghosts? Is this why there are invisible walls in almost every video game that has ever existed? Are mimes the real enemy? I don't know the answers to these questions, but I do know that this is a song by Verb T and Ill Informed, and it's called Nothing Is New. He might sell you a telly, he might sell you drugs, but you'll know that it's Steve, cause his eyes almost touch. Shifty Steve's takeaway. He's got bigger fish to fry. A bloke everyone's heard of is Abraham Lincoln, and his very existence kind of disproves the theory of buildings retaining traumatic events and displaying them as holographic projections into our consciousness, because we all know that he was suicided by the big they. He was shot in the back of the head in a theatre. But did you know that since his death in 1865, Lincoln's ghost has been seen on multiple occasions, most notably, it seems, during Franklin Roosevelt's reign as President of the United States. But Eleanor Roosevelt herself was quoted for feeling Lincoln's presence in a study while she was writing. Of a night time, she'd say she could feel a tall presence standing behind her. She just assumed it was Abraham Lincoln. The Queen of the Netherlands as well, I can't remember her name, but she visited the White House and she was greeted by him after he knocked on her bedroom door, which got to be fucking weird. Like, at least he was polite, do you know what I mean? And it's really a testament to his character, innit, that he knocked on the door first. It shows that he was a polite and he was a good-hearted person. Many witnesses say that they've seen him standing out of the Oval Office window as well, like not floating outside of it, but standing inside, facing the window with his hands like sort of cupped behind his back. And windows, they seem to be important to Abe and his wife because of his wife's belief in the occult. She believed that Abraham's reflections in the windows symbolised his first and second term, long before he even found out he was going to get a second term. But this was because his reflection was in two parts one time when he looked at it, or in a dream when he looked at it. And one of them was a lot more faded, like he could see himself clearly in one of the reflections, but then next to it was a really faded reflection of himself, almost like they had double glazing at the time, I guess, and didn't know about double glazing, or they were using really thick glass and the glass was somehow refracting the reflection itself. But that for some reason made her think that means his second term will be cut short. And I've got no idea if this historical tidbit from the History Channel has been added to their timeline retrospectively. But when you couple it with the weird dreams Abraham was having surrounding his own death from assassination, it does make all of it seem a bit more believable. Drunken alleged coke fiend Winston Churchill was also visited by Abraham Lincoln on one of his visits to the United States when he stayed in one of the quarters of the White House. Oh, I'm struggling with White House. Whilst he was stumbling around the building, bollock naked, Churchill decided to go back to his bedroom, presumably maybe for a quick scoop or a smoke, and it was here that the apparition of Abraham Lincoln briefly stunned him, to which Churchill claims he spoke to the previously past president, saying, "Good evening, Mr. President, you seem to have had me at a disadvantage," which is quite witty, innit, when you've been caught in the buff by a ghost. And according to sources at the time, there's a good chance that it's true, or at least it's true that Churchill believed this was true, as there were reports of Winston often mooching about his quarters with his dick out. Now, I've spent a while searching for it, not for Winston Churchill's penis, but I was hoping that there might be a person who claims to have fucked Lincoln's ghost, but unfortunately there wasn't anything out there. Bringing it back home though, there are countless reports of the Black Monk and White Lady sightings all over the UK, and these have ties to stories of shapeless entities moving through marshlands and bogs. Another common report of ghostly activity are balls of light, which some people put down to aliens, but mainstream scientists claim that lights like these can be emitted from rocks when they're put under huge amounts of stress or pressure. According to science, when there are huge tectonic shifts in the surface of the Earth, there can be visible lights in the sky that aren't usually there, which could Aurora Borealis, could that be something to do with rocks being put under stress then? Like, surely that must be where the link is. I haven't looked into that, but that's got to be, surely that's linked then to tectonic movement. I mean, it all seems fucking improbable, but one ghostly visitation gets played off as ball lightning, and it seems to happen a lot that people will tie some sort of haunting to ball lightning. But in 1973 in Fleetwood in Lancashire, England, a family did have this happen to them. I was tempted to do this in a daft voice, but fuck it. It was the 3rd of December 1979, and using the dating system that we invented earlier, so with this being around 40 years ago, that could potentially put this in somewhere in mid-October or mid-February, depending on which way your burger dial was turning. Give or take a few days either way. Anyway, the family had a bubble of sorts that passed down through the chimney, and a chimney that, by the way, had been blocked off to keep away the infamous Christmas bandits that were known to sneak into the houses of Lancashire through the chimney and escape with the jewellery. But nothing was able to get in the chimney. Like a pigeon couldn't lay its eggs in there, it couldn't drop stuff down there. It was blocked off. And they only had a 60-watt light bulb illuminating the room, which, by today's standards and compared to the alleged mercury releasing and emitting light bulbs that we've all got in our houses now, if you listen to conspiracy theorists, that supposedly they alter our mood and brain chemistry, these 60-watt light bulbs would, compared to what we have now, probably leave us with a healthy-looking tan. The family, they like people to know that they had a telly in the room as well. It seems important to the story. It was plugged in, but it was turned off, and this builds a nice image, doesn't it, of the family. They were having a bit of family time. Just as the man of the household may have been about to impress the lady of the house with his wooden spoon under the tea towel trick, a spherical light entered the room via the chimney breast. A good-sized, 6-inch above average, dull purple orb came into view, and turns out it was furry. So, at this point, we've got a furry purple 6-inch soapy item leaving a sealed up tube in front of the kids. Let that sink in. Anyway, back to the story, the evidence, if you like. The family were conflicted on whether they'd describe the bubble as spiky or furry, but they seemed to settle on furry. But they did all agree that the surface inside of the bubble was perfectly smooth, and whatever texture was spread across the surface didn't reach inside the bubble. The bubble was silent. As well, they make a note of this. It was silent, it didn't quote Arthur Daly, nor did it ironically hum Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall as it came down the chimney. It was totally silent, no noise at all, and it continued to creep towards the television. And at approximately 8 inches away, which isn't that much bigger than 6 inches, is it really? Who's fussed over an extra couple inches realistically? Just a few millimetres more than 6 inches away from the TV screen, it disappeared and emitted a large crack, leaving the family with the smell of an electrical discharge. Now, I know what you're thinking. The fuck does an electrical discharge smell like? So, according to Google, an electrical discharge smells a lot like chlorine. A lot like the lower atmosphere of Earth, it says as well, which I don't know how you would measure that. I don't know how you would smell that. I looked into ball lightning. So the internet described ball lightning as having the ability to suddenly materialise in a house. It can pass through thin walls. And surprisingly as well, it can travel through open or closed windows, which does give credence to my theory about windows being made to hide the holes in our walls. Whether a ghost, spirit or actual inexplainable lightning is a fucking mad thing to happen in front of a family. But what about lights appearing in front of potentially lonely men in caves? And we don't even have to go that far back. We don't have to go back to the cavemen to find out about this and, things like that. We can... And it's, we just only got to go back to the 80s. So from at least 1986, there's been reports of the Phantom Hummer. A bloke known as Jeff. It's already suspect because the information I'm reading to you, it literally describes him as only known as Jeff. Like, that's the quote. But we'll trust Jeff because it seems to be spelt proper and he's a human, not like the other supernatural Jeff you might be aware of, as in Jeff the Talking Mongoose, that spells it G-E-F rather than J-E-F-F. And he's a Welshman too. Immediately, for some reason, that, to me at least, makes him become more trustworthy. Maybe they should have, like call centres in Wales rather than in Newcastle and that. But not to say people in Newcastle don't sound trustworthy, but for me personally, I like the Welsh voice. Anyway, I've lost myself. The article it quotes was the book quotes was from the 13th of November 1986. So I'm assuming that it happened. It might have been the 14th of November. I'm going off my notes. Because I wrote the same date twice. I think it was on the 14th of November, which I'm assuming it happened the day before because obviously it won't be in the newspaper the same day, isn't it? Very unlikely. And that happened on a Thursday, so it wasn't Friday the 13th, which it happened on, which is good because that was it. I think in the paper it said it was on the report was from the 14th, but it must have happened on the 13th, the day before. But it's good that it's not on Friday the 13th, because then we know it's not just the Cambrian news team trying to scare away the mining populations that are out in this region, and it's not just them having a cheap, let's make Friday the 13th scary. Anyway, Jeff was investigating inside the mines of the area when he started to hear a humming sound. It isn't said what tune they were humming to him in the mine, so we'll have to assume that it was the Paul Simon hit You Can Call Me Al, because otherwise the humming entity would be nameless to Jeff. And after dropping 13 positions in the chart that week, it must have been a popular song for a while before. And it's a song that everyone knows, isn't it? Like, think of it now, You Can Call Me Al. You know what the tune is to that, don't you? But just as a quick side note, What makes this occurrence particularly creepy for me anyway is the names of the songs that were in the charts that week, because you've got David Bowie's When the Wind Blows, which would it be ironic that he's listening to a noise? Gwen Guthrie, which I don't recognise the name of, and the song was called They Long to Be Close to You. And if these are a ghost, maybe they do long to be close to you, especially if the ghosts know about the spectrophiliacs. Experiment Number 4 by Kate Bush was in the chart that week. So that's weird, because it could have been a little experiment going on in the caves. Ghost Dancing by Simple Minds speaks for itself. Madness is Waiting for the Ghost Train. So could that humming have been more of a whistle? The Midas Touch by Midnight Star. That's got to have something to do with it, because like the Midas Touch, he turns everything to gold, and you would mine gold. And you got Something Out of Nothing as well, though, by Latesha Dean. So is he just making something out of nothing? There's a lot to be learned here just by the songs that have been released that week, or at least were being played a lot that week. And obviously there's as we all know, there's plenty of 80s artists that we can connect to miners. Anyway, we'll get back to the story. So, Jeff, the investigative digger, called out to the depths of the mine, assuming someone must be in the distance, but he got no response. He approached the body of water, and the humming seemed to be emanating from the other side. Clearer now, but upon observation of the other side of the pool was just blank rock. In other words, he'd hit a brick wall in his search for the mumbling musician. So he figured if there were someone deep underground with him, that they would need a torch as well. Like he had a torch, so he thought they would need a torch. So to trick the little hummer, he flicked his torch off in the hopes of seeing the light of someone else's torch, in the brief second when the other guy realises and turns his torch off. But fuck all, at least torch-wise. But what he did see would get his fake name in the paper. Jeff saw a bright, sort of off-white, sort of pale blue light, which was around the size of a small man. It didn't emit light like a torch would. Instead, it was just light. It glowed. Jeff bottled it though, and he fled the cave. At a later date, Jeff heard stories of lights occasionally being seen emerging from the mountain and slowly moving towards the sky. So, could Jeff have just seen ball lightning? It moved slowly like the Lancashire family claimed to have seen happen. Or did Jeff see something else? Could he have actually have seen a gnome? Because we know that gnomes can move through solid rock and that they dwell underground, and we also know that ball lightning can pass through thin walls, but nothing about it moving through mountains. But there were stories of ancient mythological beings being able to move the mountains, so could this be in some weird way an example of all that? Maybe Jeff was just chatting shit. Maybe the Lancashire family were all on drugs. Maybe what Jeff saw was the result of natural gases forming in the cave, leading to an hallucination. Maybe the lights in the cave were the natural luminescence of the hollow earth seeping through the bedrock. After all, what were they looking for down there if not a hidden Welsh doorway to Agartha? Anyway, we'll have a song. This is Necro with Your Fucking Head Split. There is a famous story of a man being underground and experiencing lights, but instead of it looking like a small human man, it was cast from the finger of an alien, and the story about that comes from a fella called Phil Schneider, a contract worker from America who claims to have been involved with the underground, deep underground military bases, with the upkeep and the development of them. This is where he met an alien and got shot in the chest with a lightning bolt. A story that I've mentioned before, but today still isn't the time for that. But I just thought it should bring that up, that was another someone that's seen a weird light underground. Today, though, is the time for the story of the ghost frog, specifically the black frog of John of Clanranald. I might be saying that wrong. Clanranald. It's Scottish. Clanranald, if you wanted to look it up. That's the black frog of John of Clanranald. A story that dates back to the late 1600s. Now, by all accounts, this John guy was a right cunt, so to try and prove his prowess to his new clan, he decided to shoot two of his fellow clansmen. So he wasn't in people's best books, just generally speaking. And that's after he became the leader as well. That wasn't even as a power move to become the leader. He just did that to show off he could use a rifle. And that was sometime after 1679. Known by only his mother as Good Times Johnny, GTJ later became obsessed with his own haunting. After he committed some truly evil act, I don't know what it is, couldn't find out what that was, Johnny the Plucky Scot was followed everywhere by a giant black frog. Now, it's unclear whether this frog was humanoid, like the Loveland frogmen of Ohio, though I wouldn't consider them ones to be giant frogs, and they were more of grey in colour, plus they were in America, not Scotland, and I also think they wore trousers, I think they wore jeans, so probably not the Loveland, Ohio frogmen. Eventually, though, John tried to flee the clutches of this massive, mystical, amphibious creature, and he ran away to the land he owned in the Outer Hebrides. Him and his clan, they had some of these bits of islands in the Hebrides, if that's what the Hebrides are. I'm sure the Hebrides are islands. Of all the things I've looked up, I've not actually looked up if that's just a mountain range or a bunch of islands. If you're Scottish, I know there's a few of you, let us know in the Discord. But when he got there, to the Outer Hebrides, and the fucking toad was waiting for him, mate. Now, we can only imagine him island hopping off the Scottish coast, screaming in terror as the frog spawned in front of him like a medieval Call of Duty glitch. Frustrated by the web-toed toad, John imprisoned the frog in a cell, but the humongous frog escaped without a trace. Some believe John was fibbing in regards to his amphibious foe, but this frog botherer wasn't finished there. It didn't end, it just carried on. Turns out all the frog wanted to do was to be friends with Johnny. Whilst out at sea in the waters around an island called Iag, which is I-A-G-G, again Scottish, don't know if I'm saying it right, could be Ag, a storm managed to surround John and his crew while they were in the waters. And this is where it gets strange. I mean, it's already strange, but it gets a bit weirder. His crew suggested that John should invite the frog onto their boat, and he did. And in doing this, the storm subsided and no one died. Well, some might say that John of Clan Ranald may have had something missing, and that got me wondering, what's missing in your life? And that can only mean it's Language Arts crew with Lazy Days in California. Got a little sponsor as well this week, there's Fat Pete's Prints, mate. That's Fat Pete's Prints as in things that come out of a printer, printed things, not as in, fellas that wear crowns and that. Not like that, Fat Pete's Prints. Yeah, I'm wearing one of the shirts now, mate. It's got a fat woman on it. They're not all just fat people are out like that. He's also got them fake nanomagnets you might have seen me advertising on my TikTok and my Instagram and that. But it's got a woman who's clearly some form of taxidermy. She's a bit heavy set. She's got a shotgun in her hands and a dead guy's head on the wall that's wearing some weird faux fur thing on his head. With a couple of cow horns coming out the sides of his temples. Pretty weird, isn't it? There's aliens shirts. There's all sorts. There's a guy that looks like a sex offender. He's a hairy guy licking a lollipop. There's a picture of a cartoon shark trying to eat people called Sail Shark. That's on a t-shirt. I got one of them and all. There's stickers as well, little stickers. There's all sorts, mate. But you can, if you go over to there, that's Fat Pete's Prints on Etsy. I'll put a link in the description below, and there'll be there's a link on my Linktree anyway. If I do forget to do that, you'll find the link at the bottom of my Linktree or if the bottom of this, click the Linktree, linktree.ee/worldaroundyou. And then on there you'll find the Fat Pete's Prints link. It's just an Etsy shop, mate. There's shirts, stickers, some anatomical prints. They're alright, they're not as good as the ones on my website. I don't think they'll mind me saying that either, because I've gone out my way to go and find mine and frame mine up in that. There's fake nanomagnets, like I say. Moon magnets, mate, which look pretty good. And eyeball magnets as well. They look alright. I've got a couple of them as well. They're on my freezer at work where I keep my dead rats. And speaking of dead rats, that's the discount code, mate. Use the discount code DEADRATS. DEADRATS. I think it's got to be all in capital letters, but give it a go either way. It could be either. That's dead rats. And you get 15% off, mate. Anything on the shop on there. Anything on the Fat Pete's Prints Etsy store, 15% off, mate, with dead rats. It shows them that you're listening to this. It's good. It helps everybody out. Go and give them a go. Anyway, I'll let you crack on with the show.
Each week at Snifty Steve's, we pull all the correct guesses for his most recent court appearance. The winner gets their family a brand new second-hand appliance and a sausage supper for 4. That's 50 Steve's takeaway. He's got bigger fish to fry.
So with our adverts out of the way, let's get back into it. What do you think that ghosts are? Do you think that they're just echoes of the past? Maybe you think they're a glimpse of the future? Are they other beings with nothing to do with dead humans at all, but they're actually the mythical creatures like giants and gnomes? they all seem inexplicably tied to light though, which is pretty weird. Like, ghosts are supposed to show up as very cold on heat vision technology, whilst a lot of ghosts have been reported to have ominous glows around them, so there's still a light there. But something worth thinking about is if these creatures tend to be seen in the dark of night, but even though they're visible in the dark of night, that's the thing, they're still visible even though it's pitch black. And so you don't need the light there, it's like they emit the light. One example is the ghost of a monkey in this encyclopedia I've been reading. It managed to blow out a candle that was very far away from it down a corridor, and then it was still fully visible in the hallway even though the candle light didn't reach the monkey. And it turns out that during where that building was, where the monkey was, the author of the book has actually probably disproved that it was a ghost monkey. Or, well, kind of could have proved that a ghost monkey does exist, because in the book it says that during a time period while that building was in use by the aristocracy of the land, they used to keep wild animals and foreign animals. There was another story as well about the Tower of London and the ghost of a bear charging through someone, and someone basically shot themselves when they had this bear run at them, and a few days later the guy died. He was someone he was quite high up apparently in the military, and he would charge into battle and he was really brave, but the ghost of the bear fucking ruined him. But anyway, dead animals and that, I've got a theory. What if there's always a chance to be visible? Now, like, as a ghost, what if there's always a chance that ghosts are always visible? Is it, some of them may always be visible? For example, keeping it with the dead animals, with the bear and the monkey and that, like, maybe when you go to the zoo, you could actually be seeing projections of lions that died 30 years into the future. There's always going to be lions in that exhibit, because that's the lion exhibit, so you expect to see lions in there. So you're more susceptible to seeing lions in front of you because you're being told there's going to be lions in there. So yeah, you might be seeing the lion that's in there now. Let's call him Simba. Fuck it. Obvious, but we'll go for Simba. But you're also seeing Mufasa, keeping it, who's dead. He's been dead for, since the first 20 minutes of the film. Let's say, 10 years ago, Mufasa died, but you're seeing him in the background just moving between the bushes. So, and you could be seeing the ghosts of the lions that have since grown up in there in like 2050 and died. But because it's always lions in there, there's people that believe, I'm really simplifying the idea, we're just using lions, but if there's always the same family or the same things in an area and you expect it to be there, some people believe you're more likely or more susceptible to be able to see the so-called spirits in that space. If you're enjoying this, give me Patreon a go. Patreon.com/worldaroundyou. There's loads of stuff on there, mate. 160, maybe more than 160 by the time you hear this, daily updates, which are these tiny little shows, normally from about 4 to 10 minutes long, where I just sort of riff on my own ideas. I have an idea in my head and I try to go through along with it, see where it goes. Sometimes it's just paranoid ramblings. They're not scripted, there's no research really gone into it unless I've been reading some the night before and it's freaked me out. There's longer shows on there where I read some of the angry comments every now and then. I used to do that. I used to read some of the comments from horny people as well. Don't really do that anymore because it feels, since I stopped doing that pretty much when I started the OnlyFans page, because it didn't seem right to take the piss and then that also have the OnlyFans, biting the hand that feeds you kind of thing. So I didn't do that anymore after that. I don't get that many angry comments at the minute, but when I do, I'll do another one. But it's quite nice at the minute, people are being nice to me. There's also my books on there, Uneducated Guesses, Out of Date Antique Table, A Lover's Guide, More You Know, and 50 Ways to Torture a Sloth. You get them all as downloads if you join for £3 a month. So if you give me £3 a month, you get all 4 of them books and loads of hours of stuff worth to listen to, including, now bear in mind, right, in my edits here, this is week 14 of what used to be my radio show. Each of these shows get diced up into 2 separate shows, a Here's How and the main show, like Ghosts, this one that you're listening to now about ghosts and that, and then you get the Here's Hows as well. That's why it alternates every week. But if you join Patreon, you can get them all, mate, all of them as videos. You can watch me record them in real time, unedited, so you see the fuck ups. Sometimes I chat with the people in the comments on the live streams from Patreon, or in the YouTube streams when I've done them, or every now and then I used to record some of them on TikTok as well, but then I started getting flagged on TikTok for some of the stuff I was talking about, so I didn't want to risk that when my TikTok started to get better and bigger, so I don't do it on there anymore, but I still do it on YouTube and that, because why not, I'm not really doing very well on YouTube. It's took me, what's this now, the 7th year of being a taxidermist, and I've got 3,000 followers on there, which is subscribers, which is pretty good, isn't it? But compared to all the other pages, it's lagging behind. I think it's even behind Twitter, which is saying something, because my Twitter's shit. There's barely anything on there. But this wasn't about me socials. This is you know where to find me already, I imagine. But you can find me on Patreon, mate. Patreon.com/worldaroundyou. And you can even join for £1 if you just want to watch all of these. It'll work out, I think, 69 weeks worth of episodes, as in like 69 main episodes for the radio show, which have been getting released spaced out over 2 years, 3 years maybe. They were once a week over lockdown and that, quite religiously, but then obviously once lockdown ended and I could skin stuff again, that took precedent, because I like peeling the skin off of rats and that, innit? Obviously that's my thing, that's what I want to do. But I do enjoy doing these, and I'm still recording more. If you're not going to join Patreon, fair enough, don't worry. I know everyone can't afford it, so that's fine. But share these around and lie to people in the comments for me. Tell people that you've signed up. Don't tell me that you've signed up, because I know that you haven't, innit? Because I get to see who does sign up and who doesn't. But you can have a look on there. At the minute, as of recording this, I think there's 18 or 19 people signed up to it, and they seem to be enjoying it, I think. Either that, or maybe they've forgotten about it, I don't know. But I don't know, trying to be honest with you. But I think you'll like it. If you enjoy these, I think you'll like it. It's just ramblings, not like these sort of ramblings here. I'll be dead honest with you, this is about my 5th attempt at recording this little advert to put in here. My microphone broke, and now I'm using a different microphone, as you can probably tell by the sudden change in audio quality. So now this, to me, sounds much better. But you're not going to hear the benefits of this unless you join Patreon and hear the daily updates from now going forward, and probably new episodes that will be recorded, won't be released until probably now July 2025, because I've just recorded an episode about Toy Story, which is a 3-parter. Going out on the radio as a 3-parter, but it'll just be to you guys on here eventually in 2025 as one long 3 to 4, maybe 4.5 hour long episode. But there's all sorts, mate. There's all sorts on there. You'll like it. I think you'll like it. It's worth a go, innit, for £3. And I also started giving people updates of new things I've made as well, so you get a little heads up before anybody else. But this has been a fucking long advert, so even for the sake of this, £3, and it'd just be nice to know you enjoy it enough to give me a couple quid. Anyway, we'll crack on back with the show. Now, you could apply it to being in town as well. It's not got to do with just animals and being in zoos. Like, maybe one of the reasons everywhere looks so busy all the time is because as populations increase all around the world, so do the death rates, meaning there are some spirits of the dead and projections of the future all visible in that area. But because you normally see the odd weirdo in town, and you generally expect to see people walking around town, you don't question if all of the people you're seeing are real, or if you don't question if all the people you're seeing are actual physical beings. So you could, if you was to walk around town and you saw a person or a couple of people walking together in like Edwardian gear, you might look at them and think, fucking, they're weird, aren't they? But you might not cross your mind thinking, oh, it's a ghost, because it's the middle of the day, and there's always been a town there, or at least a thoroughfare, a path going through it. So there could be the ghost of Edwardians walking through there, or Victorians, or, any sort of ghost. It could be a Tudor, I don't know. I remember when I was at school, we got taken on a trip, and the guy was giving us a talk, and then he said, that door there, we've had to remove the staircase, because that there was a woman there, and she got spooked by a ghost who pushed her down the stairs. I thought, that's a fucking, that's nonsense, why tell that to kids? But I mean, that's, again, something that must have been formative, because I think about that most days, being told that. Anyway, like, when you're in town, you expect to see people, innit, as I'm saying. When you're in the zoo, you expect to see animals. But when you're at home, you would think it was weird to see a giant frog in your house, or, some form of orangutan or ape, or other ape, or an Edwardian peasant, or a pair of injured children, or a floating ball of light, and rightly so, because that's not something that you would expect in your house. Whereas if on bonfire night in England, or July the 4th in America, or Chinese New Year, or New Year's Eve anywhere, if you see floating balls of light, you would just think it was a weird form of firework or lantern. And I know I've mentioned bonfire night and fireworks being a way to disguise UFO and spiritual activity in the past, but maybe the big they are trying to move the seasons, like move them around in the year or move the dates around by having the orbit, as I was trying to explain before, having the orbit of the sun being an extra few more degrees than there is in a circle, if that makes sense, more days than there is degrees in a circle, and breaking it up that way and making like the 5th of June be a Wednesday one year but be a Thursday the next year. By doing that, as they're shifting it all around the year, maybe that's what fucking the north and south splits actually are, where the pole shifts. Maybe once you get past a certain point, you can't be saying, oh, this is summer. You got to be like, oh, fucking hell, we'll have to tell them that the poles have shifted, that suddenly north is south and south is north. Because we keep getting told that that could happen soon. But what if it's just because we're getting to a point where they're like, fucking hell, we didn't think this calendar through at all. We should have stuck with George Eastman's from Kodak. We shouldn't have done this. Why didn't we stick with what he suggested? Everything could have been the same. Maybe it's that's going on, and they're trying to bring all of these nights where there's fireworks and things hidden in the sky, like it, you know, to hide the arrivals and departures of the supernatural beings, be it of the UFOs, be it of ghosts, be it of whatever you want to call them, you know. And are they trying to space out these? Like, are they trying to space them out through the year, or like these, the aerial activity? Do you know what I mean? Like the fucking Chinese lanterns. If you release like loads of them paper lanterns, like fucking 5 million of them, or you know, fucking let's scale it down, even 1,000 of them would look impressive in the sky. No one's going to notice if there's 1,002 and that 2 of them are moving in weird ways. They'll just think, fucking hell, look at that one, that's going against the wind. That's mad, innit? Oh, that must be mine. They wouldn't think to themselves, oh, fuck me, that's a bit of ball lightning. They also wouldn't think, oh, fuck me, it's a ghost. Or they wouldn't also think, fucking hell, that's an alien. They also wouldn't probably think, fuck me, that's a gnome up there. They definitely wouldn't think that, because they've hidden the gnomes from us. So are they trying to spread this aerial activity more evenly around the world, or is it more likely that they're trying to confine these dates so it's all in the same week or all on the same day eventually? Maybe after 200 years, New Year, Chinese New Year, bonfire night, July the 4th, maybe all of that will all be on the same night, or within the same week, so that whoever's in charge of making sure, like the Men in Black are in the Men in Black of the arrivals and departures of the aliens, maybe they're trying to limit that window or move the year so that window is more controllable by these people. Like, so could it be that the supernatural comings and goings are important to all of us, and not just descriptions of spectrophiles on a night on the pull? We might never know, but I think that it's something to look into, innit? There's a lot more here. I'll be dead honest with you. There's a lot more here we can do on ghosts, and I will come back to ghosts. And I do want to involve, on my next ghost episode, I want to involve a podcast that I've been a guest on before. I'm gonna see if they'd be interested, because we'll talk about little ghost stories and that, and we'll go into it in a bit more depth. But it just seems a bit mad that you can have, I don't know, it's just these explanations, man. There's the scientific explanations, or there's quote-unquote scientific explanations that they give us. That's enough for some people. For a lot of people, that's enough. They just go, oh, okay, and never question it. But if someone said to you, if you said to someone, oh, you know, I can put this glass here holds 330 millilitres, you know, which is the equivalent of a can of a soft drink, regular soft drink. This glass will hold that in water, but then someone comes along and gets that glass of water and fills it up to 335 because of that weird little dome that can appear on the top of a glass of water where it goes out of the glass, and then measure it, and that's an extra 5 mil. That's something different, innit? That means there's something else going on there. That means that doesn't actually measure 330 millilitres. It can actually measure anywhere from 330 to, let's say, 337, dependent on the liquid put into it. That might be a really fucking hard to grasp analogy there, but I'm hoping I get it across to you that not all the answers that are given might be the truth. It might just be convenient to be believed that, or it might just be something that's repackaged every sort of 100 years, every century. They repackage the information to be more in with the times, and that might be what's going on now. Maybe people are being like, well, there's a lot of technology around and we still don't know what all these lights are in the sky and what all that is, but we know that things can fly in the sky now, so why not tell them, let them believe it's aliens? Whereas in reality, there might be people, well, it might be the fact that the experts still don't even know what any of it is. There might be no evidence of ghosts at all. Like, why? I don't understand why people think ghosts have to be dead people. They immediately think, oh, it's got to be someone that's died here. Because Abraham Lincoln, he's proved that with the Abraham Lincoln story. I always keep going to say Abraham Lincoln as well because of Rick and Morty. But like his ghost being in the Oval Office, he didn't die in the Oval Office. He died a few days after being shot. So he wouldn't have died in the Oval Office and be looking out a window. He wouldn't be trying to wait to see Winston Churchill's pecker either. Although, after some of the stuff I've read, maybe he would be trying to look at a man's genitals because he seems to have them sort of tendencies. Not that I'm calling him a pervert. He liked these men, he liked these women, and obviously, you know, if you're staying in the White House, you're obviously someone of importance, and that could be quite attractive to people if someone's of importance. But it's the thing, innit? It's the unexplained, and I know that's what everything I'm talking about is, but I'm just hoping that some people that might be listening to it, I'm just taking the piss, innit? But realistically, I want people to listen and be like, maybe nothing is true. Maybe none of it's true. Maybe little bits of it are true. We don't know what is and what isn't. How do you prove it? Like, even perception, if one person sees a ghost in a group of 5 and the other 4 don't see it, that one person still saw something. But why have they saw that? Like, people might play it off as, oh, it's a mental thing, you know, something's gone happening in the brain there, or chemistry, or, you know, oh, they were on drugs, or oh, it's the dust in the air, or it's the light reflecting off the tiles and it makes it look like there's a person there. But everyone, you can speak to anyone at all, they'll all have a creepy story to tell you about something that's happened to them. I remember a field near my mum's house where when I'd walk across it, I'd hear someone crying all the time. If I went in, like, every day when I'd walk across there, you could hear someone crying, like, clear as a fucking bell. I used to walk around then with headphones on so I couldn't hear it, but I'd take it off and try and listen. I couldn't hear it every time then, but sometimes you'd still pick up that noise. Now there might be an explanation for that noise. It might be a noise of something creaking and just caught in the wind and being travelled across some fields. You're not sure, but it was creepy, and that made me think, oh, there must be something here. And I'm not even into it. There was always stories, though. Again, the White Lady. I mentioned it very, very briefly, but in that book, there's loads of mentionings of the White Lady, which was like, basically, there's the White Lady, and then there's the Black Monk. So they're both sort of like gaseous blobs that seem to just appear, which I may have even said earlier. I'm not sure if I did, but they seem to be found around bogs and marshes and that. And quite regularly, that's where they tend to be, where there's a lot of water. Now, where there's a lot of water, there's going to be steam. There will be fog, I would have thought, or mist at least. There'll be mist. Fog's low cloud, isn't it? But so that's going to refract the light again. But what do you think? Let me know what you think about it. Anyway, that's more important, really, isn't it? And I'll give you the name of that book again. The name of the book I've been using for this. It's quite a good book. I'll admit mine smells very old. I don't know where I got it from. I don't remember. The Encyclopedia of Ghosts and Spirits by John and Ann Spencer. It's worth a little look. Have yourself a little look on that. Anyway, I'm going to have to get going. Don't forget as well, tomorrow, tune in. Well, every Thursday, depending on when you're listening to this. Either way, Thursdays at 7 p.m. Tinfoil Jack and Conspiracy Jimmy's Truth Seeking. And later on today, we've got HDR at 4 o'clock. And Truth Seeker Jimmy Budd is live later with Jim will mix it at 7. I'll see you in a bit. I know the show's over. Don't skip this bit. It's not an advert, I promise. Just please leave us a 5-star rating where you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple. I'll see you in a bit.